NSFW parents of Reddit, what made you realize your child was no longer an innocent kid? My son somehow noticed/figured out that his attractive art teacher had a tongue piercing and asked me to drive him to Spencer's so he could buy a new vibrating tongue ring to give her as a Christmas gift. He will be giving her a baggy turtleneck that he purchased with his own money instead. We were on vacation at a resort in the Bahamas. I was sitting at a video poker machine in the casino, and she sat down at the machine next to me with a drink in one hand and a cigarette in the other. For about an nanosecond I thought of scolding her, but then I realized she was an adult. My kids like to roller skate and I don't mind taking them, so we go to the local place frequently. One night I look up and there is a herd of boys maybe in the 15 to 16-year-old range zoned in on something on the rink. As I watch, I realize that they are checking out my 13-year-old daughter's ass as she rolls by. Then I realized, oh crap, she has an ass. That's what I chased her mother for. I knew she was no longer an innocent kid because she had a smirk as she rolled by. She knew she was being checked out, and she knew what it meant. My little cousin has a great relationship with the man who is dating his mom, my first cousin. One day they were playing with Lego blocks, and my little cousin, who is 8 and just starting to learn about swearing, couldn't find a piece and said motherfucker. Mom's boyfriend gently explains the fine points of swearing to him, not scolding him, just letting him know that that's a big one and he can't say it at school or in front of his mom. Then the little guy, who again is playing Lego blocks with his mom's boyfriend, says, but aren't you a motherfucker? He was at a loss for words after that one. Browser history. I wish I was making this up. He typed these into Google Images. Squirtle penis Charmander penis mu vagina sex. There's a lot more. I'm late, but thought you might enjoy this one. We went to a concert when she was 16. Yes, too old to be an innocent kid, but hey, I'm a dad. She's my baby girl. The show was Rammstein, and yes, I get that this was a questionable decision, but it was free seats in a box. Rammstein is out on stage doing their thing, and there were lots of, well, dirty sexual things going on throughout the show. I was kind of embarrassed about the whole thing, but the music was great live, so it was worth it. Then in one song, they lower a catwalk in front of the stage, and most of the band crawls along it, while the one dude dons a wig and dress, and whips them from behind, while they are going. I'm all wow, that's a little much. And my little baby girl responds with, yeah, what's with all the BDSM? Stepmother of a 9-year-old boy. 4th grader. The first time I caught him masturbating was the moment I realized he wasn't a baby anymore. When you see a kid every day, it's easier to recognize them as preteens. When you only see them every other Saturday night, it's like you don't have time to mature them in your mind. You don't see the metamorphosis, so it shocks you. I went in my room and cried. He wasn't the 2-year-old I had once met. He had grown into a real little person who touches his dick. Weird. My best friend's son is 5 and 1/2 right now, and one day she walked into their living room to find him completely naked, standing at attention, and sticking his little man parts into the couch cushion, then thrusting out, and then thrusting them back in. She asked him what he was doing, and he said, this is how I relax sometimes. He isn't allowed to relax like that anymore. She had her innocence taken away from her. She was 12 years old, and her mother and I had to sit down with her and tell her that mommy was dying. Cancer. There was no hope, nothing left to do, nothing left to try. Children believe that mommy and daddy will be there for them forever, and the first true moment in which innocence is lost is the moment you realize that someday everything dies. Everyone dies. Childhood is over. We sat at the dining room table and cried, all 3 of us. And then she and I sat by for 2 years and looked after her dying mother. I held her mother in my arms when she breathed her last. My daughter kissed her cold cheek and said goodbye. Later, I had a breakdown. Not a bad one, mind you, but enough that I sat in my leather easy chair and cried with abandon and without dignity. And my little girl came in and held me and told me it would be alright. That she and I would get through this. That's when I knew. Not a parent, but I accidentally forced an awkward situation between my girlfriend and her mom. My girlfriend was in hospital for a very long time, and we could only communicate via phone, so I decided to be cute and write her a love letter. It was pretty long, and there was a bunch of playful/sexual stuff in there. Later found out that her mom was screening her mail before she gave it to her and had to ask her why someone was sending her letters with sagas detailing how they accidentally jizzed on their own face. Our son invented the blowjob at about 5 years old. You know what would be really cool? If a girl put her mouth on your penis. Funny side note, his sister in reply said gross. The only way I'd ever do that is if you didn't want me to. To which he replied, hey, don't put your mouth on my penis. Completely deadpan. She was 4 years old and was discovering her digital dexterity. She says to me, look what I can do, while extending her middle finger. She is flipping the bird. I say, you shouldn't do that. She replies, why do people keep telling me that? Not a parent. When my sister, 9, and brother, 8, hatched a seemingly genius plan to steal food from the school, they would take turns playing the "we're so poor, we have nothing to eat" card to gather large amounts of free school lunches and treats. After a week, they would pig out on their stash. I should note that my mom's a health nut, so they rarely get unhealthy food, but we are far from poor to the point of hunger. They were punished big time. When my 10-year-old son asked if I had ever smoked pot, being the honest mom that I am, I said yay, years ago, but I really didn't like. Which is the truth. I didn't like it then, still don't like it lol. But then his response was yeah, I didn't like it either. I almost gave myself whiplash stopping the car and looking at him with the do what? Yeah, guess what? Letting your 10-year-old hang out with what seems like a decent 13-year-old over the summer isn't the smart thing to do. Not a parent, but my kid cousin. I went for a couple of years without much contact with her because of college, and when I came back I had a heart-to-heart with her. Not too long after she turned 16 I found out she had become a stoner, could outdrink most of my friends in our early to mid-20s, and she had a friend with benefits she lived across the street from, and, thankfully, was using 2 types of birth control. It was pretty shocking for me. I had been close to her till she was 14, and she had always been the cute little sister I never had while I was around. Late to the party, but my 11 years old son used up all 8 GB on his Galaxy Tab and didn't know it. He asked me to fix it, so I told him that he used up all the memory and I'll have to go in and delete some. Turns out, it was loaded with Pornhub and video porn. I clicked on the most recent one, and there's 3 chicks in a bathtub bathing and putting soap on each other. Of all the hardcore stuff those 2 sites have, he's watching 3 hot chicks soap themselves and each other. I remember as a child the day I started to realize the world is pretty fucked up. I was a latchkey kid, and I lived in a house that was split into 2 rentals, and the next door neighbor would routinely come over and tell me to call the cops when her boyfriend was beating her. Of course we didn't have a phone, so I had to run to the neighbors and ask for them to call the cops, which is awkward to explain as you can hear her screaming from inside the house. All I wanted to do was play with my Transformers. This will probably get buried, but here goes. My daughter is 7 years old and has some special needs. She's in a mainstream classroom at school, just has additional learning supports. Anyway, I spent my entire early years as a mother hearing psychologists and psychiatrists and professionals tell me that she would never be able to understand empathy. She blows my mind every day, breaking through their barriers. My estranged husband adopted her when she was 4. Anyway, earlier this year we were going through a sudden and very hard separation. My husband, her daddy, just up and left one day, never visited or called or asked to see her. It was hard to say the least. Anyway, she was going through a lot and so was I. One day I saw him out with another woman, his ex-wife, to be exact, holding hands and laughing. It crushed me to my core. I went home, went into my bedroom, and just sobbed and sobbed. My daughter came in and started stroking my hair and telling me she loved me. When I pulled myself together enough to look up at her, she gave me her sweet little smile and said, "It's okay to cry, because nothing sad is forever." I just held her tight and told her I love her over and over while I held her in my arms. She's one hell of an amazing kid. Her dad is missing out. Mine was this past summer. On the side of my lawnmower shed there was a pretty big spider, the kind that are really long and skinny and make the really intricate webs. Anyway, I call my 9-year-old daughter over to look at it. First thing out of her mouth, "What the fuck?" Yeah. I lost my innocence when I was 12. My dad died, and within months my mom started dating his abusive brother. About a year into that relationship, he beat the ever-loving hell out of me, think 6 feet 3 inches 240 pounds against a scrawny 13-year-old, and the cops showed up. They both, mom and uncle, plead their case about how nothing happened and such. I ended up moving out because the state put a PPO on him in my behalf, and good ol' mom didn't think it was fair for him to move out. I lost my innocence, but all in all I'm glad it happened. I grew up fast, got my first apartment at 16, and now at 23 I own my own business, where the rest of my family is full of drug addicted, ghetto criminals. I did something/am doing something with my life. I like to think it was because I was forced to grow up at a young age. I also like to think my dad would be proud of me. Side note, every time I tell this story on Reddit, people ask if I'm Hamlet. I should probably read that, so I can get the reference. No, I'm not Hamlet. Like another post on here, this is when I knew my mother knew. It was just me and my mom who lived in a small house. My dad died when I was younger. When I was 17 she would let my girlfriend spend the night, but I genuinely thought she didn't think we wouldn't do anything. One night my girlfriend had come over to stay the night after my mom had gone to bed, and left super early for some practice. We didn't sleep much that night. Fast forward to 9 AM, I'm sitting in the kitchen eating a bowl of Lucky Charms. Mom comes in, sits down and just stares at me with this weird look on her face. After a minute she says, "Mom, you know, sometimes I realize how much you're like your father." Me with a puzzled look on my face. "Mom, I heard you, and, GF, last night at about midnight." I slumped down in my seat a little bit expecting her to be upset. "Mom, and I heard you again at 1, then at about 3:30. Me and your dad were the same way. Fuck, I miss that man. Just don't be stupid about what you do." Smiles, then leaves. Fortunately my kids are still pretty innocent. I had a moment with my younger brother though. He's 9 years younger than me, and growing up there were issues between his dad and our mom, so his dad wasn't in the picture much. Means I ended up being the main male role model in his early life. Fast forward a few years and our mom dies. There is an ugly custody thing with his dad, and for a few years nobody from my side of the family has consistent contact with him. Eventually his dad dies, patrol officer, high speed chase. We managed to restore contact with him, and arrange the first visit for him to come stay with my wife and I, meet his nieces for the first time, etc. At this point he's 12 years old. The last time I had seen him he was 8 I think. So basically when I last knew him, he was still a little boy whose most important things in life were his Yu-Gi-Oh cards and Bionicle Lego sets. So we are catching up, chatting with the TV on in the background, and a preview for Lemony Snicket's series of unfortunate events comes on. He's transfixed, watching it intensely, and then just quietly whispers, "God. She is so freaking hot." I literally felt my brain's gears grinding, a physically disorienting sensation, as it was forced into a very drastic revision of my perceptions of my little brother as I'd known him before, and the young man he was in reality.